Curry.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Going On Daily Live. I'm your host, Becky, here with two co-hosts today. Of course, Mr. Martin is here. Welcome, Martin. And our newest addition, Mr. AJ. Welcome.
Thank you.
I am very excited to have you here. It's going to be a very interesting mix between the three of us. We'll have very different dynamics from what I'm getting to know here. So, we've been warned before the show. There is no profanities today. So sometimes they slip. Not gonna lie. I've said my fair share of offensive things on this show, and I'm like, ooh, family show. It is what it is. We're humans, right? We say human things. But anyways, this is exciting. AJ, tell us for 2 minutes just about yourself, who you are, what you do, how you came across Going On Daily.
There's tons of things about me, but first and foremost, I've been in the entertainment business now well over 21 years, between film, script writing, producing, help run international film festivals, and also owning a wrestling promotion. I've owned a wrestling promotion now for 11 years called Supernova Wrestling. We have a show coming up on May 3rd up in Portland, Maine at the Maine Studios. Cheap plug-in. I'm also a father of 5. I have 5 children.
Wow.
I also have autism spectrum disorder, and both of my boys have it. And if you hear a kid screaming, that's one of them. So.
Oh, Ron's here. No, Ron's not here. Okay. Well, amazing. Thank you for the introduction. I'm, you know what? I'm thinking now, like you two actually have a little bit more in common than I originally anticipated. Like the whole film thing. Martin is somewhat of a thespian himself.
Grounded in theater, but big film devotee.
Oh yes, big time. Which is going to be a good topic today because for the last 2 episodes that I've been on, I've been talking about, and something you suggested, Martin, was celebrities who are actors who turned down famous roles. And so it was a 25-parter. And so I'm on the last 6, I think. And I saved some good ones for the end. So we'll finish that today. We've got a lot of very interesting topics as well to talk about. That's the cool thing about the show is that everyone has all different things to discuss. So I'm very excited to see where it goes today. Before we do that, I'll just let everybody know where they can find us. First of all, on Facebook at RI Broadcasting. You can just type in Rhode Island Broadcasting. You can follow along with 10,000 other people. You can watch us live there. Of course, we're here Monday to Thursday and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Check us out on Twitch at RI_broadcasting. And of course, over there, you can support the show with bits. I forgot to mention at Facebook, you can support this show with stars. Finally, you can watch us live on YouTube at Rhode Island Broadcasting. Again, these are the 3 places you can watch us live, but of course you can follow us on all our social medias at Rhode Island Broadcasting or some variation of that. If you just type it in, you will find it. Finally, head over to Patreon where you can support the show. That's RI Broadcasting, and you can get yourself some merchandise, a mug, I think some stickers. Do we have shirts yet? I can't even remember. Anyways, head over to Patreon and you can find us all there, and not just Going On Daily. A bunch of the Rhode Island Broadcasting shows are over there. So without further ado, let's get into the first topic today. I believe this is you, Martin. You're chatting about vaccines and autism, which is a hotly debated topic.
It is. And I'm going to do a mediocre to poor job now because I was referencing a specific article. It was a recent New York Times opinion piece that came out March 20th, written by a friend of mine, Dr. Holden Thorpe. And the reason why I'm going to do a poor job is I had it easily referenced on my computer right behind where the camera is, and it just blew up and it disappeared. It just disappeared all by itself. I don't know why,
Oh
but
wow. Okay.
I think I can do a good enough job of hitting the salient points, but I'll miss the one or two direct quotes that I wanted to reference. But Dr. Holden Thorpe is currently the editor of Science Magazine. He's a friend of mine from graduate school. He's had
Wow.
an extraordinary career as a chemist, physicist, musician, believe it or not. And he was a chancellor of UNC Chapel Hill, and he's currently on faculty at George Washington University, where he teaches history, acting, and plays. And works for many of
Oh, hold on a second, Martin. We've lost you here.
Did you? Oh boy.
That and now it's back. Okay.
Now it's
All right.
back. Okay.
Carry on. The internet
So
is a weird place.
very good. My technology is betraying me today now, clearly.
Yeah, it doesn't
well,
want you to talk about this. The internet
all
gods
right,
are
so
like, mm-mm.
Holden had an interesting life development a couple of years ago. He was diagnosed as having being on the neurodivergent spectrum, and he has a degree of specific type of autism,
Interesting.
and which he did not know till he was 53 years old. And
Wow.
he did not disclose this publicly for a while. And I'm paraphrasing here, but his sense was, I've had a good career, I have a family, have a lot of
Mhm.
success. It sort of sounds maybe disingenuous look to say I've been dealing with this, but he was encouraged by colleagues, people in the community, to come out and share
Yeah, why
his
not?
experience and his success. That it would be good, actually a positive thing for the community. So, with that said, he was invited to pen a piece for the New York Times last week about vaccines and autism. As we probably all know, in our country, there is this move now uh, from Robert F. Kennedy to investigate whether or not vaccines cause autism.
Okay.
And my friend was here to say this has been debunked a long time ago. There is no relationship between them. But then he goes on and has a very nuanced conversation about what we mean by autism and being on the neurodivergent spectrum. And the Robert F. Kennedy is now sort of characterizing this, along with our president, as a scourge on children. And I think there's a feeling that, well, it's not a scourge. It's something to deal with, something to respond to, something to incorporate in your life. But we're fighting the wrong things here. And so I think that the message was, you can live very, very productive lives. In many cases, there are, people with various degrees on the neurodivergent spectrum are contributing in extraordinary and distinctive ways to life in many different ways. For Holden, it's been in the arts, education, and science. But it's different for all people, and that resources would be better used rather than investigating links that have been now very credibly and comprehensively debunked. Let's use it for other things. And there's also a concern that by implying or accusing vaccines of causing autism, it creates vaccine hesitancy in other conditions which can be deadly, i.e., measles. So that was the thrust of the article in general. And as I said, I wish I had it up on my screen. My screen it just blew up. There were one or two good quotes, but I think it's a very logical, heartfelt article. It was from March 20th, so anyone can go to the Times and look it up and take comfort in it that there are it's not the crisis that certain people are making it out to be, but something that needs to be incorporated in our lives and recognized, not stigmatized. And there are tools for people with these conditions in how to get from maybe to point A to B, but also tools for family members and just society how to better communicate with them too. So it doesn't have to be no one has to be a pariah here. We can all work together, and it's when you talk about the variety of life in the sea. Well, there's a variety of life in the human condition, and
Totally.
I think that's the thrust of his article. So without it there,
Interesting. I
that's
want to read it.
yeah, no, it's good. It's a good piece, easy read, and he's a good person, fascinating person, and I think it was an important article given the juncture we're at now to get that
Hmm.
message out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I won't get into my, this is not a political show as much as I
No,
want it to be some days. So, I will keep my opinions to myself, but I'm so interested in hearing like every side of the piece,
of
because
the
I don't,
piece.
I honestly don't think that you can make an informed decision without knowing every side, you
It
know?
it Yeah, no, I think that's true. And what's nice is it's tangentially political because political decisions are being made, but the thrust is really it's a science article and a
For sure.
humanity article. And to your point, I think this particular issue has been discussed and a lot of sides have been examined. And
Hmm.
there's always going to be outliers who might say differently, but there is a
Right.
very good consensus in the scientific community and people who deal with this who feel strongly this is what we're dealing with here. But again,
Hmm.
it's a good read, and I, I I'm just sorry that I lost the article in
No,
the
that's
moment now,
okay.
but yeah.
No, well, yeah, I am. I am
About
about
to
to bust.
bust. Yeah, let's hear it from
Yeah.
the
So,
horse's mouth.
for someone who grown up with it and whatnot, just fun fact here: Dan Aykroyd has autism.
Mm,
A
Oh,
lot of
no
people
way.
don't know that, but he does. It's actually quite a few actors and actresses with
yeah.
autism. There's a lot. There's a huge list, and a lot of people in the fields of school, music. The list goes on. It's endless. I love the fact he wrote article and everything. I also feel that people have to understand that autism, you can get it 3 different ways. You can get it genetically, a dormant gene in someone's body, or someone like myself who has it, and that gene only carries over to males, not
Mm,
females. Very
Oh,
rare with
interesting.
females. And trauma. So, for example, my youngest son was born, and then he had a medical issue that he got rushed to the hospital, and to the point where his skull was sunk in due to lack of
mm,
oxygen, which is
Oh my
one of
goodness.
multiple ways that you can get autism. I was wrapped around the umbilical cord 6 times over, and was pronounced dead for like 3 minutes,
Hmm.
which ultimately led to me when I came back through. I ended up developing autism due to the dormant gene and due to a traumatic situation. And then there's environmental, meaning I'm not trying to be an ass, but environmental / traumatic situation as well, like your upbringing, depending on um, how it was done correctly, things were done correctly on a mental health reason, can unfortunately protrude autism. So autism, like I said, it's done 3 ways: genetic, environment, and trauma.
Interesting. I didn't know that about the trauma piece. I mean,
mm,
it makes sense though. My my question for everybody in the group here,
mm.
do you think that they're very quick to diagnose people with autism these days? Because it
Yes.
seems like everybody and their kid is like,
Um, so
and
the
then some.
problem is, this is where the vaccine theory came into play. So now, I think it's like 1 out of every 100 births has someone diagnosed with autism or has autism. And that's because back in the day, people were trying to figure out why this became such a huge thing. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, it's coming out of the wood shop everywhere. And then they all tied it to vaccines because it didn't happen at a high rate until after vaccines became more mandatory throughout time.
Hmm.
So when more vaccines got added, there's actually a couple of people. I don't know what the actress's name was, Jenny something, Jenny McCarthy maybe.
Yeah.
She's on this crusade on how she's trying to stop, the vaccines, organic eating for children, reduces autism. She even had at one point she had some scientists show up a chart on how vaccines could be potentially tied to it. It's absolutely ridiculous. I believe autism is an evolutionary step because if you think about it, some people may sit there and be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Give me an artistic person that's not intelligent. Give me one person on the spectrum that does not have a special ability in terms of intelligence at a specific thing. And everyone's going to be like, well, they tied up with people with Down syndrome. I'm like, no. You can't, because it's always going to be something different. Autism is not one thing anymore. It used to be. It used to be you're either artistic, Asperger's, or on the spectrum. Now they just roll it all up into a spectrum now, because they cannot tell.
You're either almost like any sort of learning disability or learning differences.
You're either at a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3 now. There's no longer a designated thing. I actually, believe it or not, a lot of people that grown up with Asperger's absolutely hate this whole thing. They absolutely hate the reorganization of the definition. Same way, like I hate the redefinition of attention deficit disorder, because now they just roll it up. Attention deficit disorder and ADHD is one thing now, which that's not true, because I have ADD. I don't have ADHD. I'm not hyper. So it's like they're just getting lazy in the medical field.
Yeah, and so for me, like as a crunchy lady here, like I have a hard time with these extra diagnoses, or that everyone has it now. It's like, I'll take, for example, I have a neighbor whose children have several diagnoses. And I feel for her. That's hard work, Parenting is hard anyway, but having kids with, diagnoses is tough. But she feeds her kids like crap. And I have to think that there's got to be some correlation between some of these insanely processed foods that they're getting. And I don't want to just pick on them. I just, in general, our foods, not even just like the processed foods, but like nothing that we eat in North America is pure food anymore. It's all very overworked, genetically modified, full of chemicals. So like that has to play into this somewhere, behaviorally.
I'm sort of glad you brought some of these things up, because one of the things I did, my memory forgot to mention when I wasn't referencing, was the diagnosis, and that diagnostic criteria has changed over the years. And so when you asked a very good question, why are so many more people being diagnosed with that? And that's more than a fair question. That's what you do. They've got better data now.
That's fair.
They've got more, they've expanded the criteria. They've seen more cases, and it's not as simple as what AJ was saying before. Oh, you have this, and that's what Asperger's is. It's there's a lot more to look at, and so I think they can or the claim is they can diagnose better and earlier, and that plays into it. And diagnosis is an important part of dealing with any disease or condition or whatever. You want to deal with good information, and you want to be as accurate as you possibly can. But that has changed over the course of a generation or two in the whole approach. So the diagnostic criteria has changed, and it's nutrition. Does it play into it? I couldn't say definitively. The sense I've read about says not necessarily with autism, but good nutrition is vital. It's a problem. Western food is, as you said, it's a very, very processed.
I mean, it's so mineral deficient. Like our soils are lacking the basic minerals that humans need. So now we're all having to supplement with magnesium and calcium and iron. And
I personally think that is a concern from a nutrition standpoint. I personally have not seen enough evidence suggesting that that's causing something like these neurodivergent spectral disorders. And there's this question it's been hammered into my head, because we humans, myself included, at the top of the list. It's a Latin phrase that goes post hoc ergo propter hoc, and it talks a bit. It's a Latin-y way of saying that correlation between things does not prove causality. Right. So I would just say you start with, if there is a correlation, it's worth studying, and then you see if there is causality. But
for sure,
like you, I am pro nutrition and pro good food, and it can only be good for you in every step of the. I don't know, and I won't won't be able to resolve that here if that is an underlying cause for these things. But all that said, how we as a society deal with all of this is going to determine, well, it affects people's lives. However you are wired in this life, how comfortable then can you fit in society, and how can you function? And there's a lot of dynamics. How you're treated at home, if it's a medical condition or a therapeutic condition, what you have available to you to shape you, but then how people respond to other people. If we live in a rigidly normative world, it's going to be it's more challenging for people who don't fit into that. And there's
For sure.
so many people. Simplest thing is blindness, right? You people blind, you can't see. Do we wire everything so that blind people have to conform to the sight world, or can we meet them halfway or someplace to say, hey, we make these provisions for you to go through things easier, and with that you can thrive more. So that's the bigger question, but it's a good discussion always to have.
Totally. I do appreciate the advancements that have been made. Like, I'm just thinking school wise, my kids right now compared to when I went to school, if you had a learning disability or a challenge, well, too bad, you're just going to fail. You're going to have to sit by yourself near the teacher because you're the bad kid. As opposed to now, it's like they offer assistants or EAs or whatever you guys call them. They offer, like, my daughter couldn't read because she did French immersion. And then when COVID hit, I pulled her and homeschooled her, and I didn't know French. So all of a sudden this kid doesn't know how to read. She's in grade 2. And so, in grade 3, I put her back into English speaking school. And they worked with her very specifically. And it wasn't like a stigmatized thing. She wasn't ostracized for not knowing how to read. She was just in this fun kind of phonics club at lunchtime or during a different class or whatever. And, it brought her up where she needed to be, which was awesome. So I do appreciate those steps that, the education system at least have made to better assist people with these sort of delays as far as whatever it goes, because like AJ was saying, it's like such a huge range, right?
Yes. And I'll echo what AJ also said about brilliance and intelligence and genius and creative people, and you find out who may have been on the spectrum. Some people have contributed to arts and sciences and all sorts of things. Historically, you find out that there was something. We can look back and say, oh yeah, they were on the spectrum.
Albert Einstein had autism.
Yeah. More often than not, rather than they're the kid who didn't fit into school here. What good are you? No,
because the range is works different.
Yes, exactly. And they have this potential to see the world differently and contribute. And even my friend Holden said, as a scientist, this has helped him because he sees patterns in ways that many other people don't. And it's just one narrow example. So it's a rich fabric of human consciousness and intelligence that manifests in different ways. And woe to us if we can't look at that objectively and accurately. And good for us when we can, and I think we just flourish more.
Well, I could go forever on this topic. Like, this could literally be the whole hour. Unfortunately, we have 5 other topics to get to, including this one, the facts about this guy behind me, this little batfish here. I will do it super quickly. I will do both my topics super quickly so that we make up for lost time here. But this guy is called the red-lipped batfish. He's also known as the Galapagos batfish. I would imagine because he's found in the Galapagos. Yes, deep water oceans. Now, AJ, just to preface this, I like to do stuff about fish. I don't know why. The ocean comes up a lot. It's not even like I like the ocean or fish, but I just find them so fascinating. And I came across this guy last night as I was thinking to do a topic, and I was like, this guy is so ugly, I have to do it tomorrow. So here we are.
It's Crumb from Our Real
So their lifespan, they live about...
They canceled the show.
Yeah, it totally is. It's crazy.
Above the ocean.
Exactly. So he's a deep water fish. He lives about 12 years. He's only 40 centimeters. So if I can do the conversion on that, I don't know, like 18 inches,
Something
probably
like that,
16 inches. So not huge, but I mean, that's not small either. If you see this thing that's this big coming at you with a face like this, you're running. He's tiny though. He weighs less than a kilo. So less basically. What does he eat? Small fish, shrimps, worms, crabs, mollusks. Oh, this one was crazy. Ron will like this. He can move up to 10 miles per hour. Like, on,
What?
yeah, okay, so here's the thing. Not swim. I don't know if you can see behind me. He's got little hands and legs, and he walks.
Yeah.
He walks on the bottom. So, okay, let's go here. It looks like they're wearing lipstick, obviously. These are some of the facts. It says that we couldn't talk about him without pointing out his face, obviously, but they have no idea why it looks like this. There's no definitive reason why his face is the way it is. So it says maybe, yeah, thanks, Hugo. 40 centimeters is 15.75 inches. Yeah. Anyway, it says that the red lips could be a mating thing to help them find a mate. You know, like peacocks, males have that big, I don't know. They're not
like, hello, beautiful.
Yeah, right. He's like
hello.
Putting it on, like, oh hey. Yeah. They are not good swimmers. All I can think of no one can hear you if you are talking, AJ. When you go down like that, you can't hear anything. But anyways, he's not a good swimmer, even though he lives at the bottom of the ocean. He can't swim really at all. So this is why he walks along. Peacocks have big what? Ron, this is a family show. You know that. What? I don't even know what it's called. Tail, let's just say.
Tail. It's a feather tail.
Tail feathers. So the batfish walks very similarly to like a hippopotamus does, who doesn't actually swim but runs along the bottom of rivers and things. So isn't that strange? It says that they use their modified fins that are kind of like legs to them. So what we're looking at, if I can move here, that's not legs. It's actually their fins, but they go down. Actually, this is a better one here. They point over there.
That's just
Could they? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if they may have been a land creature once upon a time, millions of years ago,
possibly,
and then sort of worked their way back to the sea.
Yeah, maybe. Hey,
that sort of in between appendage from.
Well, if you think about like cephalopod type animals as well, octopus, squid, and stuff, they can use their tentacles as legs, which is absolutely terrifying when you think about it. When they're just walking along, and they can survive out of water for quite a bit of time too. So yucky. Okay, these little guys don't have any known predators, even though they're small side. There's no direct threats, which is awesome. So they probably have tons of them in the ocean if you were to get down to the bottom, which obviously we don't, but if we did, we'd probably see a ton of these guys. This little
field trip,
yeah, right, magic school bus. So see above here, where am I pointing? This little nose appendage here, this snout, it's not actually a nose. It's called an elysium, and it is to attract their prey. So it's the same as the anglerfish, and the anglerfish is what started this thing on deep sea creatures, because I found an article on the anglerfish and it blew my mind. So it's the same kind of thing. Anglerfish has it where it comes down and it dangles and it attracts, the other animals to it, and then it eats them. So this is the same sort of thing. So he uses this like a fishing rod and an eye-catching lure. Smaller fish and invertebrates, they're drawn to it, and then it allows this little guy to catch them and eat them. So, okay, I'll give you 2 more facts and then we'll move on to the next topic. The red-lipped batfish gets their name from Darwin. So, speaking of evolution here, so Charles Darwin, as we all know who it is, he didn't get to meet one of these strange fish during his time in the Galapagos Islands, although I'm sure he would have loved to, because this would have been, something to write about.
Definitely in his wheelhouse.
Yes. Yeah. But it says that the discoverer of the red-lipped batfish decided to name them, and I'm going to butcher this, so bear with me, you guys. Ogcocephalus darwini, after the explorer, after Darwin. It just says that this is because the red-lipped batfish is endemic, meaning he's only found in that location, to the Galapagos Islands and the surrounding waters of where Darwin was studying. So that that makes sense that they would name it after him. Finally, the last
Yeah.
fact about these guys is that they are harmless to humans. So Ron, you do not have to stress about this. I know you hate the ocean, even though you live in Rhode Island. I know you hate all fish creatures. They are harmless to humans. It said even if you go deep enough into the ocean, several of the species you'll encounter, of other animals will pose a threat from sharks, electric eels, things like that. These guys, you do not have to worry about. However, he's obviously ugly and scary, and we're like freaked out of him. But as long as you're not a small fish or an invertebrate, you have nothing to worry about. You're a big, scary human, and this is a 1 foot long little whatever that is.
Yeah.
So that is it. That is the red-lipped batfish. The more you know.
Thanks. Fascinating. You never run out of interesting things in the water.
Never.
That's for sure.
No, never. The ocean is full of all kinds of weirdness.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into here. AJ's reviews, movie reviews.
All right.
Excellent.
So brace yourselves for this one. Disney's live action Snow White was a disaster from start to finish. From the cast and choices to the baffling creative decisions, this film felt like a complete portrayal of the beloved 1937 classic. Instead of honoring the original Disney honoring the original, Disney chose to rewrite history in a way that alienated the fans and disrespected the source material. One of the biggest mistakes was the decision not to cast real actors as the Seven Dwarfs. This was an opportunity to showcase talented actors who rarely get major roles. But Disney instead went with a CGI mix of non-dwarf actors. It was a tone-deaf move that angered many
that's terrible.
in the dwarf acting community, especially considering the importance of these roles in film history. Then there's the casting of Rachel Zegler as freaking Snow White. Beyond her looking nothing like the traditional portrayal of the character, her dismissive comments about the original film only made things worse when an actress openly criticizes the story she's starring in. It's hard to believe in her performance. If I had the choice, I would have cast someone like Mikey Madison, an actress with strong presence who could have brought more depth to the role without the baggage of controversy. Disney clearly wanted a modernized Snow White, but they did so in a way that completely missed the mark. Instead of updating the story while respecting the legacy, they had drastic changes that no one asked for. The result, a soulless, uninspired mess that upset both longtime Disney fans and general audience alike. At the end of the day, Snow White 2025 isn't just a bad movie. It's a prime example of Hollywood's obsession with reimagining classics can backfire when it forgets what made it special in the first place.
So Ron and I had talked. Sorry, go on.
If you're going to ask me if I'm going to rate this, it's a big fat 0.
Well, IMDb is not much ahead of you on that. I think they've got a 1.2 or something on IMDb from user ratings. Ron and I were having this chat on Thursday, along these lines, just about them reimagining it. I'm all for reimagining things. I think that's great. However, the literal title is Snow White. The reason she got the name Snow White was because she was pasty white, like ghost white skin. This is literally where the
Europeans did.
For sure.
I don't like the fact that they changed the story a bit. The reason why she was called Snow White because she survived a freaking blizzard. Get the hell out of here. That drove me insane. Listen, I have daughters. Okay, I made sure I saw this before I even, because my wife likes to, they like to watch a lot of the Disney things. I love the live action Lion King, and I love the Mustafa movie. Live action, both which were actually surprisingly good. I can't wait for Leo Stitch to come out. That looks amazing. Little Mermaid, even when they kind of went a different direction on the terms of who they cast for the Little Mermaid wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. This right
but I
here,
heard it was good.
If I could get a spoon and gauge my eyes out while watching it, that's exactly how I felt about Snow White. And
Wow.
I've seen,
Well, now I have to see it.
some really bad movies. At least they're so bad, I can at least go and like laugh at them later on. I don't want to see it.
Right.
Batgirl needs to be out, and this needs to be canned and never seen ever again. That's how I feel about it.
There.
Period. That's just my honest crime.
AJ, did they change the score? It sounded from a trailer I saw that the score has either been completely changed or augmented.
It has definitely it did change. So the theory is the original composer is not the same composer for the actual score for the theatrical release. That is the theory. I haven't got any confirmed on it. I have some friends that work for Disney, so I'm still waiting for that little bit of information to come back to me, but I haven't got anything yet on that. I can at least tell you it does sound radically different. I don't know if they did it because the composer was like, I don't like this, or it was a director decision, which that could be a possibility. All directors have like a certain thing they want to do for the setting of it. Like, it's funny, this film got completely canned, but before it came out, everyone was praising it. Like, oh, it's gonna be so good. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not. The main actors is crapping all over it. Like, it's not going to be good.
I think that was the biggest thing. She was given this opportunity. She hasn't had many before. She's not like a very well-known actress, right? She has this thwardom opportunity, and she goes on her own agenda about, this and that, about the story. And it's like,
we're going to make men.
At the end of the day, you're an employee. You're an employee. You need to shut up. You need to do your job or don't do it.
She actually got fired from Disney. Any future plans Disney had, she's done. They got rid of her. It's funny because people crap on the new Captain America film, and I think that was freaking amazing. I loved the new Captain America.
Oh, Ron, you're about to set Ron off here.
Well, listen, hold on. The law of the hatred comes from who is the Captain America. Like, people don't follow the comics. I follow the comics. I follow the movies. I don't understand the hatred towards Anthony Mackie at all. I think he's a really good actor. I think he did a great job as Captain America. What I think is ridiculous is Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk. He looked very scared throughout the whole film, almost borderline confused. Like, he had no clue what he was doing. And I thought that was kind of weird. Like, is Harrison Ford getting to the point? Anthony Mackie, thank you. What's really confusing me is Harrison Ford, is his age finally catching up to him? Because it very much was very evident on Captain America, which I felt really bad for him because he's a great, amazing actor. Who doesn't love Harrison Ford? Amazing actor. But as the film progressed,
doing the Hulk.
Well,
okay.
Remember,
8-year-olds can't even go to the bathroom.
So but it's also CGI. But my problem is he seems very almost like he doesn't know where he is, and that's very alarming to me. That's normally stages of some type of, age is catching up to him, and I hope that whatever's going on, it's not anything serious that we'll find out later down the road, like maybe a development of dementia, because the way he was acting, it's funny. People want to laugh, or like, I'm serious. My grandfather had it, whatever. I can kind of see it where he was in certain parts of the film. It was very evident, and if no one caught on to that, I'm very concerned because that is an actor that most likely needs help, if it is there.
I think at some point you hit a certain age, maybe you should just enjoy the body of work you've done and just go watch movies instead of make movies. I appreciate them including him, however.
Unfortunately,
maybe you need to just
passed away.
Yeah, that was a sad one for sure. Anyway, I like the review. I hope this is a common occurrence for you.
Oh, it will be.
Good.
I just hope I don't go on a rant.
Well,
rants are fun.
Rants are fun all the time. So,
I have not seen Snow White. I'm hesitant.
Don't.
I'm sorry.
Do not waste your time.
Don't. But the original is a landmark film.
Well, it is 100%. I agree.
And they took a big chance reinventing such a landmark. I think they would have done better if they wanted to do even if it's just a woke Snow White or a different Snow White, done that movie and gone back to the source material of the Grimms, but not been a remake of their Snow White, which is classic, perfect, and so important for children, but in the development of cinema and animation. And you risk a lot and you gain very little, even if it was better done or well done. What did you gain? So not a great idea right out of the gate, I think, but so be it.
So be it. Yeah.
Hi ho. Hi ho.
I mean, I'll still watch it just because I'm curious now, but I mean, I just think like as far as like the respect of Rachel Ziegler in that role, like that's what really turns me off. It's like you're given this golden opportunity that people dream about and you're throwing it away. So
bad career move.
Yeah, totally. All right. So I'm thinking just for time's sake here, I'm going to skip mine actors who turned down famous roles. I know it sucks, so I'll finish it another time. But let's go into your topic, Martin, for 3 from Shakespeare.
Great. Well, I was thinking of that as a series of 3.
Okay,
so
cool.
we're not going to do all 3 today. So, but the 3 I picked, I was in Washington this weekend visiting my daughter again, and I popped into the Folger Shakespeare Library Museum. Cool. And I wasn't there for long. I was passing through and I saw some interesting things. We'll talk about that another time. But I thought of these 3 plays of Shakespeare that were written, some say in the same year, like 1595. They may or may not. I think it's fair to say they were written very close together. And they are Romeo and Juliet, Richard II, and Midsummer Night's Dream. And I personally think all of them are brilliant and all distinctive, and yet they're written in very close proximity to each other and early in his career as a writer. So we'll take a look at those. It's not really a trilogy, but those 3 plays. And we'll start with Romeo and Juliet, which is probably the most famous of the 3. And we all know Romeo and Juliet thanks to the Flintstones.
Is that where we know it from?
Romeo and Juliet. Romeo rock, Romeo rock. Wherefore?
I don't think I saw that one.
The Flintstones and Rocky and Bullwinkle. And look, it's a brilliant play, and it has become the default quintessential love story. And so I will quickly hit on what I would call some interesting things to think about Romeo and Juliet in ways maybe you haven't before. It is, so very quickly, it is a quintessential and a phenomenal love story. It's also a political play and dealing with the intrigues of local politics in Verona during the Middle Ages, and that political element it runs through, and it's a violent play, it's an angry play. So there is that kind of political intrigue. It's also about family dynamics. Who doesn't know a situation where people are getting married and the families can't stand each other, and it falls onto the poor bride and groom who have to navigate those waters of very real hostility between the families, and it has devastating results. This is, I'm not saying it's widespread, but we've all seen it. We all know, and so there is that common theme. But let's lean into the love story. It truly is a great love story, and I used to teach this to high school women at an all girls school, and it was the first Shakespeare that they were going to be exposed to. So I tried to approach it in how to not game this, but how to make this even more relevant for young women of this age. And because they were, by and large, these freshmen in high school, more or less Juliet's age. I think as Shakespeare writes her, she may have, she was very, very young. And yet Shakespeare wrote her. She is a brilliant character. And so much so, changed the way women characters are written and perceptions of love in dramatic work and maybe poetry writ large. And he invests this brilliance into a young 13-year-old girl. And I would point that out for them to draw strength in it and agency from that you also have the potential for greatness, wisdom, and maturity beyond your years. So the way this is set up, out of the two, Romeo and Juliet, both are generally speaking attractive people, and I think they are drawn to each other, physical attraction and passion, as people are wont to do, as young people are wont to do, and so that's part of it. But I think in a close reading of this, you see a lot more substance in Juliet than you do Romeo. Romeo, before up until the point where they meet, he's moping about, whining because his current girlfriend Rosaline doesn't want to have sex with him, and he's taken on this posture of, "Ah, poor me, I have to endure this. What am I to do?" Blah blah blah. And it's funny and it's tiresome. It's childish. Then he sort of by circumstances meets Juliet, and all of a sudden he has forgotten Rosaline, and he's like drawn to Juliet, and she is drawn to him. And I would say she sees something in him. I think underneath his brashness, his selfishness, she sees some
Playboy
potential in him.
player status.
Playboy. She sees, yes, she sees potential, and in the famous balcony scene, she's exploring it, and she's looking to nurture it. So one thing, famous line in the scene, "Oh Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo," very often gets misinterpreted as to "Where are you, Romeo?" Uh, and just to be clear, get that out of the way. It's not what it means. Wherefore means why. So she doesn't know where he is. She doesn't know he's in the garden, but she is pondering, why are you Romeo? I.e., why are you from the family that is the sworn enemy of my family? That's what. Beyond that, they then meet. He reveals himself there, and they're talking, and they're getting to know one another. They're flirting, and they're sharing ideas and passions of how much I love you. And she asks him to swear, not swear, but he offers, "I love you like the moon." I'm paraphrasing here. And she tells him, and you can see her wisdom here, her maturity. She says, don't swear to me by the moon. The moon isn't constant, changes phases all the time. I want you to swear by me by something more substantial, because the swearing by the moon doesn't mean anything. And then she goes on to further to say, or don't swear by anything else but other than yourself. You are all I need. Yourself, your goodness, your essence is the only thing of value to swear by. So flowery things like the moon and beautiful things that we often poetically swear by, well, that's fine. But Juliet wants something more substantial. And he's not catching on right away. And she sort of has to take him along on this journey. And then she says a couple of interesting things. He asks for her before they part that night. He goes, "Give me a promise of your love to me." And she says to him, "I gave you mine before you did request it." And I think that's a very powerful, sublime statement. My love was yours to have. You didn't even have to ask for it. It was always here. And that's a young girl, and that's a really, really extraordinary expression. As they're about to part, one more really wonderful thing happens poetically, and it's all on Juliet. Um, he still wants her to swear, and he gets a little annoyed with her because she says, "I don't want to." Let me get the exact quote here. This I do have right before me. Yeah. Yet Romeo says, "Oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied? Juliet, what satisfaction canst thou have tonight? Romeo, the exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine. Juliet, as I just said, I gave thee mine before thou didst request it. And yet I were to give again." And Romeo misinterprets that. "Wait, you want your love back to give again? To whom? Why not me?" And he's hurt, and he's angry, and he's being an immature boy. Wouldst thou withdraw it? For what purpose, love? And this is where she kills it. And this is the genius of the play. And this is why we still talk about it 400 years later. She says, "But to be frank and give it to thee again. And yet I wish but for the thing I have. My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite." And right there, 13-year-old girl, and that changes things in the play. and it changes things in dramatic literature and poetry. It was a more sophisticated, sublime expression of love. That love so deep that it regenerates itself in perpetuity, which is impossible. But she does. That's the magic. And that little 13-year-old girl has that all figured out. She's light years ahead of Romeo, and she succeeds in waking up in him his better angels. And so the play continues to a different end. So great play. That there's so many great moments in the play, but that balcony scene that we all sort of know, when you dig in a little deeper, there really is genius at work, and it's simple. You take the time and absorb it carefully. It's crystal clear what's going on, and it just blows your mind away.
It seems like in Shakespeare's day, the children had to grow up a heck of a lot faster than they do now. The fact that he's giving this to a 13-year-old.
Sure. Now, it's also interesting, too, that it was probably the role of Juliet was probably performed by like a 15 or 16-year-old
Of course,
boy.
yeah.
That's neither here nor there. But yeah, no, childhood was over sooner,
right.
In many respects. But even so, Juliet is a particularly precocious young lady, and this continues throughout the rest of the play. And he was a particularly gifted writer who could craft deep thoughts into such beautiful language and to great dramatic effect, and none more so than here.
Oh man, imagine Shakespeare today meeting. I mean, I have a 12 and 14-year-old daughter. I can't even imagine him having a conversation with them now, giving them a heck of a lot more credit than. Anyway, I'm not going to bash them, but that's cool. I like that.
No. Well, let's just. The language raises everybody up, but I love it coming from a young lady.
Totally, I like that, and I like that piece with how you taught girls or women at an all-girls school. I think that's cool.
It was I was privileged to do it, but they have agency too.
For sure,
like Juliet.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that. I'm excited to hear the other two versions of that. I'm a heck of a lot more familiar with Romeo and Juliet than I am with Midsummer's Night Dream. And what was the other one? Richard II?
Richard II.
I don't know those ones.
Second,
so I'm excited to hear those over the next couple of weeks here. So as we come into the last 10 minutes here, we go back to AJ. UFL. Did I get that right? UFL? Results.
Yeah, UFL, the United Football League. All right. So here we go. The St. Louis
So this is a
Battlehawks.
new league then?
Well, not necessarily. It's been around for a while. Okay, so the XFL and the USFL merged together to create the UFL. So this is the second year as the UFL. But prior before that, there was like 2 pro spring leagues. So here I go with the results. On Friday, March 28th, the St. Louis Battlehawks steamrolled the Houston Roughnecks 31-6. On Saturday, the San Antonio Brahmas fell to the Arlington Renegades 33-9. Sunday's matchups, the Michigan Panthers defeated the Memphis Showboats 26-12, and then the defending UFL champions, the Birmingham Stallions, fell to the DC Defenders 18-11. The NFL dropped the ball with St. Louis, man. They should have had a team in St. Louis. They're doing killer in rate in attendance. And I think the Houston Roughnecks need to relocate to Oklahoma. They're not doing crap. That there were supposedly 400 or 1,000 fans, and they look like only 5 guys on one side of the damn stadium. So it's like, and they're doing a horrible job marketing. They have to fix it for them to exceed as a professional league. And they're starting too late. They should have started like a week after the Super Bowl if they wanted to capitalize on attendance. So,
I've never even heard of this league. I'm like shocked by this.
See, and that right there is why I said they have horrible marketing. They have no concept of community. So check this out. The St. Louis Cardinals Major League Baseball team promotes the football team, the St. Louis Battlehawks. They cross-promote each other all the time.
Interesting.
Okay.
Wow.
And the St. Louis Stallions get about 30 to about 40,000 people every home game. It got so bad that San Antonio's last home game is going to be in St. Louis. That's how bad it is.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. So
AJ, why do you think that is? Horrible marketing. Obviously, to a league, it's not the NFL, but it had to be capitalized to some extent. With people with that kind of money, you would think they would have
first of all,
gotten ahead of the curve.
First of all, they're owned by Fox. Fox Sports owns half of it, and The Rock's company owns the other half. So with that being said, The Rock originally was the owner of the XFL, and Fox was the owner of the USFL. They're essentially both were competing against each other for a brief moment. But the point I'm getting at is they merged because they were going to fold. 100%. They were going to fold. There was no way. 2 spring professional leagues would never survive. So they had to merge. The biggest mistake they did was they dropped the Seattle Dragons. They dropped a lot of XFL teams just to make the USFL feel special and keep their crappy teams. Which the only good team that came out of there is the Stallions, which are this is the shocker, have won the league championship all 3 years of their existence. All 3 years. They legit did a 3-peat. It was ridiculous. First year's the UFL, they steamrolled the competition and freaking won. This is why them losing to DC Defenders is a freaking shock, especially season opener. As far as I remember, the Brigham Stallions in the 3 years in their existence have never lost their season opener. So that was a big shock. So I think the UFL could surely be awesome. Problem is, there's a possible player strike going to happen, which is stupid. Supposedly horrible practice environments, but the other rumor is money. Listen, dude, you're not making money. You're there because no one else wants you. The NFL doesn't want you. The CFL doesn't want you. The indoor football leagues don't want you. Like, shut up. Get a better product out there. Help build the fuck.
Yeah.
The help. Pardon me. I almost swore. Build up the money to make it so you can say, hey, this is what we did. Where the hell is our money? You know, because they don't want to get paid like it's minor league baseball. That's why they're doing this, because they don't want to get paid so low. Get a real job during their off season. If you're so much going to cry about it, just do that. That's all.
Is the whole point of it? Is the whole point of it that you guys just love football so much you're missing it for that spring time? So you bring in this other league to fill it.
I used to coach and played football. So I love football in general. I'll watch arena football. I'm actually a Canadian Football League fan too. I'm a Toronto Argonaut fan. Okay. I love football. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. That's my go-to team for the NFL. I love football. Football's a really good thing. The brotherhood of it, the camaraderie, the community in football is really beautiful. And I honestly feel really bad for the fans who have to be tortured watching what the UFL is putting out there right now. The UFL can be 20 times better. They were good when they were separate. It's like as soon as they merged, it just got worse. And I don't understand how that even was possible. It makes no sense to me. They freaking need to sit down after this offseason because they're talking about adding 2 more teams next year. If they keep going the route they go, there's going to be no way they can expand. It's going to be like the CFL all over. Oh, that's another thing. The XFL tried to merge with the CFL before this merger happened. So originally, the Toronto Argonauts were going to leave the CFL to go to the XFL, and then the Canadian government blocked that. So they were like, yeah, we don't want you going to the U.S. So they blocked it.
We're not allowed to leave here. We're stuck here.
Yeah, I guess not. So the XFL countered that with, why don't we merge? The same thing they're doing right now with the USFL is what they pitched to the CFL, which would have been great. I would have loved to see a U.S. teams against Canada teams again. They did that back in 94, 95, and it was great. The U.S. teams were bitching because they didn't want to, do the field measurements. But otherwise I thought it was amazing, So
what do you think?
Interesting.
What could right this? What could make this work? And what do you foresee if everything now goes right? Brighter minds take over. They correct the errors. What do you foresee in the future with this running?
First of all, they need to contact Oliver Luck, Andrew Luck's dad. When he came in to do the XFL when Vince McMahon brought it back the first time. They did everything right. So they need to bring in Oliver Locke and his team back in. That's one, and make him the commissioner of the UFL. That's one. Two, they need to move the Houston Roughnecks out of Houston, relocate them to Oklahoma. They're not going to do good in Houston. It has same thing with the Memphis Showboats. Both teams need to relocate. The Showboats need to go to San Diego, where they're hungry for professional football. Absolutely hungry. Put a team there. Put a damn team in Oakland. Like, you have cities that are starving for professional teams.
Okay.
Like, stop putting
key.
teams where no one wants to go. Kentucky will be great. Kentucky, believe it or not, is probably it's weird to say this, but they're the biggest supporters of professional football teams because they're huge Cincinnati Bengal fans. God bless their souls. They're fans of one of the crappiest teams in the NFL. But I think Louisville would freaking blossom if they had a professional team. I mean, some people say, "Oh, we need to put a team back in Seattle." I honestly don't think that makes sense. Oh, they also need they have to move to smaller stadiums. When you go to a 70,000 plus capacity stadium and you're only getting 20, if you're lucky, 25,000, that makes no sense. Play in those professional soccer stadiums, which only max out to 30,000. You're good, 100% good. That's what DC Defenders are playing in. They're playing in the DC United stadium, and they pack that crap out all the time, or at least close to it. I think I think if you don't have a professional football team in your city, or if you don't have if you're not a big football city, there's no reason to put a team there. Not saying Memphis is not a football town. It is. Problem is, they can care less about the UFL when you have the Tennessee Titans down the road from you. That makes no sense. We'll just wait for the NFL season. I'll go watch the Titans. That's what the mentality is. And because the Washington Redskins, Commanders, whatever they want to, stunk up the place for so many years, when the DC Defenders came in and were steamrolling teams, that's why they did good in attendance for a bit. And plus, they want to be a feeder system for the NFL. They really do. They want to become like what NFL Europe was. Like, that's what they want to do. And they're really pushing. They're trying to be like, please give us financial aid, NFL. Because I don't know if you know this, that's what the NBA does with the WNBA and the G League. They put money back into those two leagues. So that's kind of what the UFL wants. They want to become like a developmental league for the NFL, which right now they're not doing so good on that.
No. It's a nice aspiration, but you've got the multi-billion-dollar college system, right? I mean, that's hard to compete with.
Well, okay. Well, first of all, their season's not during college, so there's none. So there's none to compete. And not only that, they have games all 3 weekends: Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during the spring, which is amazing. You know what kills them? They start too late. They're tying right into Major League Baseball. Basketball and hockey are almost towards their halfway point. So when they start is horrible timing. I'm 100% convinced that they start mid-February, they're golden. And then have the playoffs by late May, early in the championship in June, they're good. Hell, if they really want to get ballsy, you have the championship on 4th of July weekend. You make a big thing about it. Called the Independence Bowl or something. Marketing's there. It could be an absolute gold mine. And they should never expand more than 16 teams. They cannot sustain with the 8 they have. Add in anything more than 16. It's complete suicide. That's just my personal take. I don't know anyone else. Listen, I'm in all these groups for the UFL and whatnot, and all I hear is as soon as they turn on, some guy said the only reason he watched the first quarter of the Houston game because he accidentally got on. he just like, oh, it's there, and then left. That's how bad it is. If they don't see fans, they just flip the channel. They don't care. So, and someone made a good point. It shouldn't open at St. Louis. That should have been the Friday night game at St. Louis, not Houston. The only reason why it was in Houston was because there was a convention going on at the what they quote unquote call now the Battle.
Well,
UFL, call AJ.
I was going to say,
Get
it sounds
AJ
like
a
AJ
call.
for president. He's got some good ideas here. I like
Sadly,
your
I
perspective.
do have a whole thing on the whole presidency thing. I kid you not. I'm actually I'm registered in the Independent Party. I have all that shit.
Okay.
Well, it's not a political show, so
Ironically.
unfortunately you have to keep that to yourself.
I know, right?
So thank you. Thank you for your perspective. I wish I could contribute. I know nothing about football, but sounds interesting. Excuse me. We are over our time
hockey,
here, so we do have
you
to
can
sign
do.
off. I tolerate hockey at best. But yeah, this is it for today. Join us tomorrow when it's going to be Ron and Kenny. Join us Wednesday when it's going to be Ron, Kenny, and Samantha. I will be back on Thursday with Tony, who is new, and then on Saturday, Ira and maybe Anna, who is new. So we've got a lot of new people here starting. Make sure you check us out on all of our socials and be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Becky. Nice to meet you, AJ. Great show.